Well, hey there everyone. So by the time this video posts, it will officially be October. So of course we're doing more Halloween content. Now, it came to my attention that I don't have anything that is like casually spoopy for the Halloween season. So we're going to fix that right now. So basically to fix that problem, I went to the thrift store. So I picked up 4 sweatshirts, and basically what I'm going to do this week is I'm going to make some like Halloween patchwork sweatshirts that are casual enough to wear out. So let me show you the haul. So the first one I got was this just black hoodie. So this is the only one with a hood. The other ones are just regular sweatshirts. Then I got this orange one, which will be great for the vibes. And then I picked up this blue one. And then lastly, I picked up this green one. So I don't know if I'm going to do all 4, but I have the option to if I have the time. So let's talk design. So I think one of them I for sure want little ghosties on them. One of them I for sure want a pumpkin, a jack-o'-lantern on it. And then I definitely want to do a bat on one of them. And then if I have time, maybe on the last one I'll do like a spelled out like spooky or something like that. So let's talk about materials. So I think I'm going to do it kind of like a patchwork kind of quilty vibe. So instead of doing like a big orange pumpkin, I'm going to do like a bunch of squares put together and then make it like a cute little patchwork pumpkin. And then sew that on top of the sweatshirt. So that's kind of the vibe that I'm going for. So everything's going to be cute little like materials put together. Kind of like a cottagecore Halloween. But before I do any of that, the first thing that I want to do with all of these sweaters is cut them to size, because as you know, my torso is freakishly short. So I want to basically crop top all of these because I love a crop top. So that would mean I would more likely wear it rather than it being a regular sweater, because I don't wear anything long. I just prefer a cropped top. So basically to do that, I'm just gonna cut it where I want it, and then I'm gonna cut off the waistband and then sew it back on to the where I've cut for the length. So it's gonna look like an actual sweatshirt but shorter. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and crop all of these sweaters first, and then we can get into the patchwork part. So like I said, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to shorten all of these sweaters. So I put them on and I marked where I wanted to cut them. And then I'm just going to take my rotary cutter and just cut them where I wanted them. And then I'm going to take the bottom where I said I was going to cut that off, and I'm going to cut it off at least half an inch above that seam there, so that I have something to sew to the bottom of the sweater. And then I'm just going to take my scissors and cut it completely off. And then I'm going to do that with all of these sweaters. And then to sew them on, I'm going to put them right sides together and then just sew on the bottom, but right below the original seam, so that when I turn it right sides out, I don't see that seam there, just my new seam. Now for the designs, so I'm basically just going to place some parchment over the sweater and give myself basically a border of where I can draw my design so that I know that it will fit within the sweater. So the green one is going to be this kind of design here. So it's going to be a patchwork pumpkin, and then later I will add the jack-o'-lantern face to it. And then the black sweater is going to get a ghosty design that I found on Pinterest from this photo here. And then the blue is going to be inspired from another photo from Pinterest from this photo here. And then lastly, the orange sweater is just going to get a regular jack-o'-lantern face put onto it. So once I have those designs cut out and everything, I'm going to start with the black sweatshirt. So that's going to be all of those little ghosties. So basically the best way that I found to put these patterns onto the fabric to cut them out is to place the little piece down and then take my tailor's chalk and basically just like make an outline of the shape there. And then once I remove it, I have a nice outline that I can cut out of. And then I'm just going to do that with all of the little ghosties and all of the 5 different materials that I'd found. Now, much like when I did my vegetable pants and vegetable bag, I'm going to do the same kind of method where I add the interfacing to the back here. So the important part is I need to place all of these pieces face down onto my ironing board, and then I'm going to put the interfacing glue side down and then iron over that. You just want to make sure that you're not ironing the glue onto your iron, because that's going to be really messy. And then once I have all of those pieces, I'm just going to trim them back down to size. And now they can finally be added to the sweater, so I'm just going to pin them in place and do that. So the stitch that I'm using is just a regular zigzag stitch, but the only thing I've changed is I've made the length down to 0.6 because my machine allows me to go that far down. And then I'm just going to very difficultly maneuver all around these pieces and just zigzag over all of the exposed edges. And then finally, to get the faces on these ghosts, I do have some black fabric paint, so I'm just going to paint on the faces and mouths. And then after that, the black sweater is done and we can move on to the next one. So the next one I'm going to do is the orange one. So like I said, I was just going to make a generic jack-o'-lantern face for this. So it's going to be very easy, just 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. And I'm going to use the same method where I'm just going to place the piece down and take my tailor's chalk and basically just make an outline that I can cut it out of that material. And then again, to get the interfacing on the back of these, I'm going to place them face down on my ironing board and then iron on my interfacing over that. And then from there, I could cut all of the pieces back down to size and then pin them to my sweater where I want them and sew them on. And then after the face was on, this sweater is now done, and I will see you all in day 2. Alrighty, it is day 2, and we are moving along swiftly. So yesterday I got the 2 sweaters completely done, and I have just the other 2 to do today, and so I did yesterday's the easier ones, and today I left myself the hard ones. So today we have the dark blue sweater and the green sweater. So my plan is for the dark blue sweater to be this kind of bat. I'll show you the example somewhere. And then for the green, I'm going to do this kind of pumpkin, but a little bit different than what that image is. So for the bat, what I need to do is I need to basically just sew a bunch of little squares together. And I've pulled from this kind of color scheme of materials here to go with the blue vibes. So I'm basically just going to take a bunch of little squares of these and sew them together. And then I will take my bat pattern that I drew out yesterday and then cut it out of that and then sew it onto the sweater. Now for the pumpkin, which is again a jack-o'-lantern, which I just did, but a little bit different. So in the image it shows like multiple like kind of squares of material on each like little lump of the pumpkin. I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna make each strip of the pumpkin one fabric, just because I can't really at the moment conceptualize how to do the other way. So we're just gonna do one per little lump of the pumpkin, and then we're gonna take some black material and then put the little jack-o'-lantern face on that, and then that will be done as well. So let's go ahead and get a move on these last two sweaters, and then we'll be ready for the final look. So as I said, I was going for a much simpler design for the pumpkin, where it's just going to be each little lump of the pumpkin was going to have one material. Now for the pumpkin, it's going to be a little bit different than the other pieces that I did. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to piece the pumpkin together face down on this ironing board and then iron down my interfacing over the back of it so it just kind of holds this entire piece together. And then I'm just going to take that to my sewing machine and I'm going to zigzag all of these two pieces together, making sure that when I zigzag, I catch both of these pieces and basically just cover up the seams. And then once all of my seams are zigzagged on this, now I can finally do the jack-o'-lantern face before I sew this onto my sweater. And the jack-o'-lantern face is also going to get some interfacing just to make it pretty stable. So once I have all of that cut out, I'm just going to pin that to my pumpkin and just again zigzag all over the edges. And then we're ready to put this pumpkin onto the sweater. So again, we're just going to pin it on and zigzag all of the edges, and then this pumpkin sweater is done. Now finally for the patchwork bat, so I'm just going to take all of my blue materials that I'd found and cut out squares of them. So I'm going to do 4 squares of each so that I could have 4 rows of 6 squares. And this is kind of the randomized design that I had come up with. Now I'm going to take all of those squares and sew them together to create a row, and then I'm going to sew all of those rows together, of course ironing along the way. And then once I have my entire sheet put together, I'm going to cut the bat out on a fold. And then the last thing that needs to happen is I'm going to pin the bat onto my sweater and zigzag over it, and we are about done. So once the bat is all done, we are finally ready for the final look. And they're all done. I think my favorite one by far is this one. One, because I think it fits me the best, and two, it has ghosties on it. And I just love the like different fabrics that were in the patches because it makes it just look a little bit more cottagecore, and I love it. And I think the fabric paint worked out really, really well too. I was trying to like figure out what to do for the eyes and the mouth of these ghosties, and I'm glad that I had fabric paint because I was either going to like embroider or something, and I just wasn't really feeling like doing that. So this was a great option, and it's hopefully washable. And then I think my least favorite has to be the bat. I think in concept it was cool. I think, I don't know, it's just like when it's far away, it kind of looks like the map of the United States. So but like close up it looks pretty good. It's just not my favorite out of the bunch. And then the two jack-o'-lanterns I think were incredible. I love this one and I love the patchwork on it. It's just so cottagecore. And then surprisingly, I liked this one a lot too. I wasn't expecting to either do or like the orange one just because I don't generally wear orange. But putting the little like cute little cottagecore pumpkin face on it I think really did it for me. This one turned out really, really cute, but this one's got to be the winner for me. So thank you for hanging out with me doing another Halloween craft. I've got at least one fun project coming up this month. I don't know about the rest. I have to think those up probably day of filming. I don't know, but hopefully this helped anybody with upcycling or thrift flipping a thrifted sweater and maybe even some thrifted fabric to make little Halloween patches on their clothes and to shorten them to where you want them to be. So anything to do. If you like what I did, go and like and subscribe. I post most Saturdays, mostly at noon, and I will see you in my next video. Thank you for watching!